Good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to our webinar, which we have called Destination Scotland. My name is Jim Campbell. I'm Assistant Director at the Career Centre at the University of St Andrews. I'm one of two co-chairs for this evening's session. My fellow co-chair is Emily Sandwell, who is International Careers Consultant from the University of Stirling. The event is hosted by the Association of Graduate Careers Advisory Services in Scotland and is designed specifically for international students and graduates of Scottish universities who are interested in building their careers here in Scotland. There will be two parts to our agenda for this evening. In part one, you'll hear from some eminent individuals from influential organisations which are all committed to supporting international students, including the Scottish Funding Council, Scotland's Migration Service, NUS Scotland, UKCISA and the British Council. In part two, we'll be joined by three recent graduates who have been able to remain in Scotland to develop their careers, and they will share their experiences and some tips during a panel session. So here is some more detail on the programme for part one. You'll see that the focus is on opportunities and support, and you will hear fairly short focused contributions from our various speakers on topics such as future skills needs, the case for sponsoring international graduates, networking support, and sources of information and advice on post-study work visas. Moving on to part two, and you'll see the emphasis here is much more on the lived experience, and our alumni panel will discuss their transition from university to employment in Scotland, and that will include challenges, rewards, the visa routes that they used, and any advice they might have for others. But before we begin with that programme, let me just touch on a few housekeeping points. So you'll probably have noticed by now we've got the chat facility, so do feel free to use that if you want to introduce yourself, give us your name, university, where you're currently joining us from. And we also have a Q&A function for any questions. I should just say up front, however, that our time is limited this evening because you'll see we've got a fairly packed programme, but our speakers and panelists will do their best to answer any questions that come through on that forum, and any that go unanswered, we'll try and answer them after the webinar is finished, because we will send on the slide deck along with a link to the video recording. In terms of accessibility, you yourself can turn on live captions at the top of your screen. On technical issues, I guess we're all at the risk of Wi-Fi dropping or whatever, and if that does happen, obviously you can try refreshing your screen or just simply rejoining the session. And if the worst comes to the worst, then we are going to be recording the session, so you'll be able to catch up on anything you might have missed afterwards, so just to offer that reassurance. So thanks again. I saw that a few people joined us as I was going through some of those introductory slides, so welcome to you if you just joined a few minutes late. Let's get started with our first speaker, who's Alison Malcolm. She is Senior Policy Analyst with Scottish Funding Council, and she will do some scene setting for us by talking about the future skills needs across Scotland. So Alison, over to you.
Fab, thank you, Jim, and thanks to Jim and Emily for coordinating the webinar this evening. Can I just check that you can see my slides okay? Lovely jubbly, that's good so far. So, welcome to Scotland, good evening, and in case anyone hasn't said it recently, welcome to Scotland or Falcha Alapa. I am guessing that most of you have been here for a while now, so you know the difference between an iron brew and a cold brew. You've probably celebrated one or two Hogmanay's and Burns nights with us, and you understand the meaning of the Billy Connolly quote, "There's no such thing as bad weather, only the wrong clothes." We are glad that you've chosen to study here, and now we want you to stay, to settle down, to make Scotland your home and become part of our future workforce. Let's be clear, as a highly skilled international graduate, you're not just nice to have, you are vital. Scotland has an increasingly international economy, and you close critical talent gaps, especially in high growth areas. Our national ambition is to be a net zero and digital first nation. This transition isn't just a political goal, it's creating massive urgent demand for specific skills, both technical qualifications and, crucially, fundamental human talents. Today, I'll outline exactly where the growth is and the essential skills that you need to be highlighting to your employers. So, what is fueling this demand for international talent? There's two main key drivers. The first is digital transformation. We all know AI, automation, and data analytics are changing the game, but it's not just about the tech sector. This impacts every sector, from pharmaceuticals to traditional manufacturing, retail, care, and finance. The takeaway here is that digital skills are no longer limited to tech jobs. Every single role, be it HR, marketing, project management, or logistics, now requires a foundational level of digital literacy. The demand for people who can not only use these tools, but think digitally is skyrocketing. Our second key driver is the net zero economy. Scotland is committed to transitioning away from fossil fuels by 2045 and is investing billions in renewables, particularly offshore wind, hydrogen, and clean heat. This isn't just changing one industry, it's creating an entire new ecosystem. This new economy needs unique expertise in engineering and environmental science, but it also desperately needs traditional business roles, HR, finance, project management, and legal experts who understand the specific regulatory environment of net zero and are committed to it as a shared goal. The race to reach net zero is also a common denominator across many other areas which you might not consider. In youth work, it's about how to talk to young people about climate anxiety and help them feel empowered to take action. In hair and beauty, it's learning how to use different products, less water, or recycle previously single-use items. And in professional kitchens, chefs need to understand how to use low-energy equipment, prepare vegan or meat-free menus, and respond to fluctuations in food prices. There are also much more obvious growth areas in our economy in Scotland. The expansion of offshore wind, the hydrogen economy, solar, and even nuclear are all required skilled, qualified, confident workforces to embrace the opportunities they present for our economy, our people, and our planet. This is a real chance to build a career in a sector that's only going to grow. So let's focus on 4 particular high growth areas. This is where your specific technical expertise and your new qualifications might meet national demands. In digital data and HI, the technical skills are clear: data science, AI, and cyber. Remember that Edinburgh and Glasgow are major tech hubs, so if you're a highly skilled developer or data specialist, this is likely to be your immediate entry point. As far as energy transition goes, we're talking renewable energy engineering, project management, supply chain expertise. If you have a civil, mechanical, or electrical engineering background, know that demand is particularly critical outside the Central Belt, especially in the Highlands, where many of these major projects are located. In life sciences and health, Scotland hosts one of Europe's largest life science clusters. This means opportunities in high-end research like biotechnology and precision medicine, and critically in frontline health and social care, where there is continuous demand around the country. In advanced manufacturing and space, this is a high-end value niche. Scotland is building satellites, undersea cables, and wind turbines. Look for roles in advanced manufacturing and the analysis of data gathered from Earth observation. Looking more regionally, we're likely to see the Forth Green Freeport region become a hub for biofuels and biotechnology, while the Inverness and Cromarty Green Freeport is already a focus for offshore energy, with further ports in development to support offshore wind up and down the east coast of Scotland. Of course, these growing sectors also need competent and confident business personnel to lead and carry out vital functions, including finance, legal, HR, IT, comms, and business development. So let's have a look at some of the numbers. There's no doubt that engineering is one of the most highly sought after specialisms across sectors in Scotland. driven by a projected 75,000 total FTEs in the entire renewable sector by the late 2030s. This includes peaks in engineering, manufacturing, and operation and maintenance roles required to meet net zero targets. Project management in the construction sector reflects the significant short to medium term investment expected in large-scale infrastructure and grid upgrades. There's also huge demand for graduates to support the upgrade of our energy grid, critical for managing the necessary 54 gigawatts of installed renewable capacity projected by the late 2030s. The digital sector is already 81% graduate level. This is only expected to increase with degree level jobs over the next 20 years. This is the target core group. In cybersecurity and digital, continuous high value demand across all sectors, health, finance, energy, with persistent and well-documented skills gaps. In software development, computer programming is one of the fastest growing occupations. The digital sector is projected to grow 1.5 times the rate of the wider economy until 2029 in Scotland. And demand for core health professionals in Scotland is driven by demographic change. UK-wide, needs include over 2.2 million total health and social care professionals by 2035. And Scotland has a target to increase human health sector jobs by 117% by 2030. The developing world of digital health and informatics is essential for roles integrating technology into increasingly digital health services, focusing on efficiency and data processing. And our medtech and bioengineering sectors support Scotland's life science sector, which aims for a £10 billion turnover by 2030, requiring the expansion of graduate-intensive research and development and manufacturing roles. Now, it is important to note that these figures are heavily influenced by policy implementation and investment levels, but there's a bit of a chicken and egg thing happening here. For example, job creation in renewables is strongly tied to achieving local content targets for major projects like ScotWind. Similarly, the highest projections for healthcare rely on significant and sustained recruitment drives to meet the challenges of the ageing population. Now, for the universal truth. Your technical skills and qualifications might get you the interview, but your meta skills will get you the job. And what do we mean by meta skills? A meta skill is a skill about skills. It determines how you learn and how you apply your knowledge in the real world. These are the 4 that employers consistently rank as being the most important. Adaptability and resilience. It means how quickly can you learn new processes, and how can you think differently and strategically when things change suddenly. When you're in an interview, don't just say you're adaptable, but show evidence of a time that you've successfully trained or reskilled to meet a challenge. Next, critical thinking and problem solving. Employers don't just want people who can follow instructions. They need people who can find the root cause of a problem and propose an innovative solution. This is about making judgments, not just completing tasks. Communication and collaboration. In our world of hybrid and cross-functional teams, being able to communicate clearly, both written and verbally, is a non-negotiable. Can you explain a complex data set to a non-technical colleague? If so, that's a key meta skill. And most importantly, probably, is self-management. This is about having high levels of organisation, time management and self-direction. It's the ability to manage your own work and hold yourself accountable, especially in remote or hybrid settings. Start using the language of these 4 meta skills in your CV and your interviews, and don't just list them. Use real-life examples to prove that you understand what they mean and that you have them. So, what's next? What's your immediate next step? Repackage your value. Understand that Scotland is hiring graduates up and down the country in a huge range of areas, including digital, net zero and health. Your success will depend on clearly articulating how your technical expertise from your degree is fused from those strong meta skills of adaptability, critical thinking and collaboration. And really important, this one, is network strategically. Start building your network today. Don't wait until graduation and go beyond LinkedIn. Leverage your university career services. That's what they're there for. And crucially, explore the major industry groups and their conferences and events. If you're interested in net zero, get involved with Scottish Renewables. Go to their conferences, meet people, shake hands and ask questions. If tech sector's for you, Scotland IS. Look them up, get involved. These groups are where the employers are, and they're excellent places to align your final training or your job search with the most high demand areas. I hope you find the rest of this session useful this evening, and it gives you plenty to think about, and new leads to follow, and new ideas to put into action. Now, I think I'm going to hand you over to my colleague from the Scottish Government, or Jim.
Yeah, I'll just come in, Alison, just to say thanks for giving us that overview. That's really useful context for what's to follow. So now that Alison has sketched out a picture of the opportunities that are likely to be available over the next few years, what we want to do now is to move on to put the spotlight on some of the areas that you might get support from. So I am going to hand over in a second to Nadine from Scottish Government, and she will give us the inside track of the Scotland's Migration Service. And once Nadine has finished her session, I think we'll hand straight across to Sai Viswanathan, who's the president of the NUS Scotland, and she can share with you insights from some research into the value of international students, both to employers in Scotland, but also to the wider economy. So Nadine, if I can hand over to you first of all.
That's great, thanks, Jim. Just give me a thumbs up.
Yeah,
if that's coming
that's
through.
come through.
Good?
Yep, that's all good.
Great. So thanks for that, and thanks for your intro there, Alison. Lovely to be here and taking you all through Scotland's Migration Service. As Alison said and shared with you there's so many future skills needs, and we absolutely want you to stay and live and work in Scotland. You know, once you've finished your studies, there's such a wealth of opportunities here. But also we want to be able to help and support you to do that. So I'm just going to talk you through Scotland's Migration Service, which is our online resource to help you on that journey. I'm just hoping I go to the next slide. Here we go. So just as a bit of an introduction, we absolutely welcome you as international students and recognise the valuable contribution that you bring to our country and to society as a whole. Bringing international students to Scotland gives a diversity which not only enriches our learning experience, but it also contributes to the wider local community. And the Scottish Government is absolutely committed to supporting you all who want to stay in Scotland after you have completed your studies. So the key thing is that we offer through our resource is support through Scotland's Migration Service. Now, this is an information and advice resource, which is ultimately online. And it's to help yourselves understand and use the UK immigration system to manage your personal immigration journey, your needs to move to stay in Scotland. And it's also there for employers to employ international workers to help them navigate the complexities of the immigration system, and to help you settle into your new communities after you've moved. So we do this within all the confines of devolution in Scotland, because we can't change the immigration and the visa rules by the UK government, but we aim to empower you all with the knowledge and tools that you need to take forward the steps to resolve the range of immigration needs, and just give you the tools to be able to do that. Sorry, it's just taken a minute to click onto the next slide. Want to move on this one. There we go. So just as a bit of an overview, Scotland's Migration Service launched in 2024. And as I said, it's about helping migrants to navigate the immigration system and simplifying international hiring for employers. It's backed by the Scottish Government. It's delivered in partnership with our key suppliers. It provides that information and advice on immigration, and it also gives a wealth of information on life here in Scotland. We provide online information, there's webinars, and importantly, there are one-to-one advice appointments, which are free. And it's a really comprehensive service, which is all about removing the barriers to migration and talent attraction. And, you know, importantly, ensuring Scotland remains a top destination for global talent and investment. So open to you all. Just waiting on the next slide. So this just gives you a bit of an overview here. Not a very exciting slide, but it's just showing you who Scotland's Migration Service supports. And ultimately, there's 4 categories of different users. So I touched on it being available for employers in Scotland. So that's really to help them with the UK immigration system to hire and retain the international talent they need. So if you're working for an employer and you're planning to stay here, it can support them in getting your visas and everything sorted. It's also available for inward investors and entrepreneurs who are seeking the best options to come to Scotland and set up a business here, if that was something that you were looking to do after your studies. And then there's also the post movers, is how we describe them, and that's helping migrants who've moved to Scotland, and it's about helping you seek reception to support and settle and integrate into your communities and really identify the best options to support the circumstances. It's also obviously key for yourselves as international students and graduates, so it's giving you that support to help you stay in Scotland once you're qualified. And then we've also got the pre-movers as well, and that's migrants who are planning to move to Scotland. It might be for work or to join family members, and they need that support to help them, you know, tackle the immigration system and their relocation journey. So as I mentioned, we've got 2 operational delivery partners. One is a law firm called Service, and they provide that expert legal advice for investors and employers. And there's also Citizens Advice Scotland, and they give that holistic support for pre and post movers, so most relevant for yourself at this stage. And this is also the links you can see here to Migration Service Scotland, which we can share with you in the chat afterwards as well. So how does that look for the scope of support for you? So it's support to help you settle in Scotland. It gives you all that understanding, you know, from the public services to housing, you know, to work, employment, to education, to healthcare, everything that's available and that you need to know, it provides that level of support. And, you know, it's really there for you. If you're looking for information and advice and staying here when you finish your studies, it will be such a useful resource for you, but also the fact that you can get those one-to-one appointments as well. It gives you the advice on the steps you need to take or switch your visa, you know, from your student to relocation, and where you can find further support as well. But there's also advice on wider immigration matters, you know, so if there was questions about dependents or other families coming across, then there is all that available too. And this just gives you a bit of a snapshot here of, you know, the site and what's available on there. It's part of Scotland.org, which has really got everything on there about Scotland, you know, whether it's moving to Scotland, living in Scotland, working here, whether you're visiting, whether you're studying at the moment, you might be familiar with the website, you know, before you relocated. And as I say, there's lots of different links, you know, from finding the right visa. It gives you lots of information on the Scottish lifestyle, on our values. There's also a wealth of real life stories on there, you know, people like yourself that are students and that have come to Scotland, people that have come here to work, you know, a real range of stories that you can watch online with videos as well, just telling that story. So everything there that you need to navigate and key links through there as well. And this just shows you here, so as I said, the kind of key support offered to international students and graduates would be through Citizens Advice Scotland. And they offer appointments for any international students, and that could be in any year of your studies and also graduates. It's delivered by our advisors working for Citizens Advice Scotland, and they're all trained and registered within the immigration advice. They offer 1 hour long sessions, and they're actually open 6 days a week, which is great. You can book them in from Monday to Saturday, and you can also do that up to 3 weeks in advance and even 3 days before a selected date. And as you can see here, it's easy to go online and book it in advance. There's, you know, a click through to book an appointment, and it comes up with a calendar and you can choose the date. And then the good news is as well, it can be delivered online. So either, you know, through Teams or Zoom, even by your phone if that's what's suitable. Or if you're local to one of the citizens advice offices and you want to go in, you can also book a face-to-face appointment. And as I mentioned, they're all free appointments that you can have, and you can have up to a maximum of 3 in total per calendar year. So a really great offering and service there to help you on that journey. And then this just shows you here as well. Sorry, that's just another slide, but as I was talking about there, it shows you the calendar and the booking system as well. So really, that's everything in a nutshell for Scotland's Migration Service. I was going to share a video as well, but what I think I'll do in the essence of time is probably just pop it in the chat. It's a nice video of a French migrant who came here to study and ended up staying in Scotland. And it just tells you a bit about his journey, and it's a good one to watch. So I'll share that all with you. And then, of course, we'll be available to answer any questions at the end as well. Thank you. I'll just pass back to Jim.
Okay, thanks Nadine, and look out for that link to Nadine's video in the chat. We're going to try and keep this moving along, so I'll just pass straight over to Sai if you want to load your presentation, Sai.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Is this visible?
Yep, can see it. Yep.
Amazing. Give me 1 second, sorry. Yeah. So hi everyone, my name is Sai. I am the president for NUS Scotland, but I also lead on the work for international students and migrant rights across NUS UK. NUS is the National Union of Students, so we represent students in advocacy roles within stakeholder spaces and also within parliamentary spaces or government spaces whenever required. For me, my journey in Scotland began as a migrant. I am an international student. I came to Scotland as an international student 4 years ago. I became an SU officer in the University of Aberdeen in 2022, and I came on to become the first migrant ever to become NUS Scotland resident. So Scotland really has become a second home for me, and the Scottish government have been really supportive of the cause for migration, especially in these trying times. So today we'll be exploring through this presentation. This presentation is aimed at students and employers. For students to know what a sponsorship is and to lobby, your institution or probably workspaces to push organizations to get sponsorship or to get sponsored, and for employers to consider that, this basically a sponsorship or investing in sponsorship is basically investing in Scotland's future talent. Why it matters is very straightforward. Scotland is facing major demographic changes and an aging population right now and slow natural growth. And our economic future increasingly depends on migration to sustain workforce numbers and innovation. International talent enriches not only our economy, but also culture, communities, and all in all makes Scotland a very competitive and sort of, globally recognized place for investment, for immigration, but also for opportunities. To remain globally competitive, we must strengthen our approach to recruiting more international talent. And obviously, this is, as I explained why, these are the 3 sort of very pressing points that have come through, I think, come through of years and years of, research being done, years of surveys being done, conducted in within universities, but also within the NUS as well. So economy and demographics is one theme. Benefits to existing workforce is another theme. International students are very keen on, giving back to the community as well, and also staying over here and using their skills they have acquired from university, and use transferable skills that they have acquired from their own countries to a new workforce to, create a dynamic workplace that is multicultural, that is globally recognized, and that also feeds into the global reputation for Scotland, and in return increase the scope for investment. So this is Scotland's current landscape. As you can see, international students alone in Scotland contribute around 4.75 billion as of 2023. So if you're looking at boiling down to a per person sort of uh, average of benefits, you're looking at benefiting per citizen in Scotland around 170, not 170, sorry, 750 pounds per person, which is a huge amount. So this is the investment going in by international students alone. So there is a strong recommendation and a strong indication for a hefty return as well that international students do expect, but don't get. Looking at the current government in Westminster, looking at the past governments as well in Westminster. So obviously, when you're looking at population growth as well in Scotland, is entirely driven by migration. International students alone add billions to our economy, bring cultural diversity. This has already been mentioned, and yet universities saw a significant drop in international student numbers because of the immigration changes that we saw, in the past few years. However, pushing organizations or pushing workspaces to actually get a sponsorship license can curb that drop, can save our education sector but also our economy, and sort of bring in more opportunities, not just for migrants but also for locals, and bring in a lot of opportunities where locals and migrants can work together, start businesses of their own, and also start a lot of entrepreneurship spin-offs that can really set us apart in the UK itself. Well, a multi-sector opportunity is not just healthcare. I think there is this notion in general that international students tend to go into the healthcare sector because there are opportunities readily available and there is strategic placement of opportunities only in the care sector. However, that is required, but also there are other sectors like arts and humanities, policy making, policy, education, and STEM streams where you see a significant gap of international talent. When you're looking at demographics, for example, working in universities, working very closely with universities, we do see a significant gap in international talent when it comes to mid-management level, or when it comes to student support, or people basically within recruitment teams. We are seeing certain significant changes in different universities where that gap is being filled, but that should be made a regularized practice, especially when we're looking at ancient universities. And the best way to sort of push educational institutions to get a sponsorship license is probably contact your student union if there are any students over here, and push your student union to put in a motion in your student council, and basically push your institution to get a license so you have more opportunities open to more students. But that's for the education sector. I'm sure there are other ways to do this for other sectors as well. When you're looking at the creative industries, the creative industry requires global ideas, humanities and social sciences enriching our storytelling and policy making, and education obviously thrives on international perspectives. We also know that there are STEM shortages that remain persistent, and living in Aberdeen, I have seen that when you're looking at offshore, when you're looking at renewable energy, there is a big demand of international talent. However, when you're looking at things like net zero, when you're looking at things like sustainability or alternative energy options, there is a big talent, there is a big requirement for talent there as well, but not necessarily does every organization carry this license that can that can recruit global talent unconditionally. Well, the economic benefits are very straightforward. Non-UK workers contribute around 34,000 to Scotland's GDP on an average. Skilled migrants make a net fiscal contribution exceeding £10,000. And when you're looking at international students, we've already discussed this, it's 4 to 6 billion annually, and sectors like creative industries obviously depend on global expertise, like I mentioned before. Well, the strategic rationale, if you ever have to make a case for this if you're ever in a position where, you're in a representational role and you do have to push to, get this sorted. The strategic rationale is innovation, international collaboration, community public services, and talent pipelines, and student workforce with student demographics. The economic case is very clear. Skilled migrants do make a very strong net fiscal contributions. Clubbed with the strategic rationale really does make a big case of how Scotland, the workforce of Scotland is interconnected with the realities of the world. International talent brings new approaches, cultural perspectives, and lived experiences. And I think when you're looking at new projects or entrepreneurship ventures, when you're looking at the current political climate as well, lived experience really does matter, especially when we're talking about cultural preservation in Scotland, accelerating a healthy cultural exchange in between different communities, getting more global talent or recruiting more global talent is really important to sort of strengthen a Scottish cultural identity, but also sort of get that positive message out there that Scotland is a very welcoming place and it is a very, different place. We have a very different political landscape and we are very welcoming to migrants in general. Here are some myth busters that we've put together. These are mostly for mostly a lot of employers or a lot of workspaces come up with a lot of myths or sort of get entangled in a lot of myths, and a lot of misconceptions sort of undermine progress. So debunking them is very important. For example, international workers drain public services. That is very wrong. Skilled migrants contribute more than they take and often make a net contribution of around £16,000. Scotland is already full. That is another myth. As we all know, we have established that Scotland's working age population is shrinking, and we are very much in requirement of inward migration coming in. These are two other myths that international students leave after graduating. That's not true. We very much do want to stay here. We very much do want experience in the workforce over here. But it's just simply that there are no stable opportunities due to the precarities around visas at the moment. And domestic workers can fill all roles. The reality is persistent skill gaps exist in STEM, teaching, creative industries, and policy-making spaces. These are some of the barriers. Obviously, as you all know, being a student or being a migrant worker nowadays is really hard. A lot of with the immigration white paper being published as well, there are a lot of organizations that have taken a back step looking at the increase in the salary threshold, which went up from £38,700 to 41,000. Just over the top of my head, I think it's a bit more than 41,000. I'm looking at Anne-Marie over here just for signaling if I'm right or wrong. But since the salary threshold has gone up, there are a lot of organizations who have taken a back step despite the benefits of international talent being very evident. Organizations worry about sponsorship and the compliance part and the immigration processes. Salary thresholds obviously are restrictive, and some employers fear reputational damage or political scrutiny because the Home Office does surveil or sort of does come in to do compliance checks before issuing a license. And many simply lack the capacity to navigate complex processes or complex systems. The system is not as complex as it seems, which you will see in my next slides. And it is pretty straightforward. However, there is a notion that, the system is pretty complex. It's just probably a matter of paperwork, which you would do for any employee, just a bit extra for international employees. This is the implementation process. When we're looking at the implementation plan itself. This is what the process looks like in practice. You have the consultation period, then you have the preparation period where you involves gathering documents, and you're ensuring HR systems meet the compliance standards. The application phase is pretty straightforward and typically processed within 8 weeks. However, within those 8 weeks, you could have a compliance check from an immigration officer and possibly a site visit. And then you have the issue of the certification of sponsorship, and then you can begin to hire internationally. This is all very structured, and this is all pretty straightforward. If it's the time is very predictable. If you choose to access any sort of speeding up process by paying extra, that is something that some companies choose to do. I'm going to wrap this up really quickly. There are a few more things that I see Jim on my screen, so I am going to wrap it up pretty quickly. I promise that this is good. This was going to be a short presentation. It's not, sorry. Well, these are the cost considerations. And for anyone who wants to access the slide deck, I will leave it on the chat as well. So there is the process over here left as well. And the certificate itself costs £199. And the process is subjective to cost according to the organization. There are certain inclusive monitoring. There are certain monitoring basically KPIs and monitoring sort of points that is tracking the representation, retention of international staff, collecting feedback, EDI compliance, and reviewing the program annually and looking at its sustainability. And some of the KPIs is, again, almost the same, and looking at the skills gap that have been filled up and looking at the sort of overall progress within, each organization, and looking at the overall dashboards. Well, to conclude, I'm not going to go through these slides because this is just a call to action. This is a beautiful picture that we took with all students from the NUS. This is also future talent. To conclude, this is Scotland's real chance of investing in, global talent. And for all organizations over here, please do consider investing in talent, investing in your students, investing in the future for tomorrow. And for all students, please do push. My contact will be available over here if you need any help in terms of lobbying, in terms of, that political support that you need. If you're not affiliated to the NUS as well, that's fine. Don't quote me on that. Please don't send this out anywhere. I'm more than happy to help you or set up a one-to-one meeting, just figure out how do we do this. But we also have a big student group that is lobbying for the same across the UK to set a precedent that this should be a blanket policy everywhere, especially in educational institutions, because we have students coming in from over the world, and we need our staff to be representational as well. And with that, thank you very much, everyone.
Yep, we gave all of our speakers a tough gig trying to cover all their various points in just 10 minutes. So thanks for that attempt, Sai, and thanks for getting to fast forward near the end. That really helps us stick to the schedule. So we've just heard from a range of organisations with a strong Scottish focus. And now it's time to widen the lens a little bit. So our next two speakers that I'll introduce together bring a UK-wide perspective. So first we're going to hear from Anne-Marie Graham, who is the Chief Executive of the UK Council for International Student Affairs, otherwise known as UKCISA, who will walk us through the vital role that her organisation plays in supporting international students across the UK and an influence in the policy debate around international students and higher education. When Anne-Marie wraps up, we'll hand over to Helen Etheridge from the British Council, who will explain to you why the Alumni UK's global network is such a powerful resource for students and graduates alike. So Anne-Marie, the floor is yours.
Can you see my slides? I'm not sure this is working.
Yep, we can.
Are they in presenter view, or can you see my notes?
No, perfect. Yeah.
Great, lovely. Sorry, I've got a slightly different view, so I can't actually see anything. This is great. Really great to be on screen with you all and to see so many people in the chat and to asking great questions. And to be on with such a great panel. So I'm really chuffed. Thank you very much. I thought it would be really useful for you to hear a little bit more about UKCISA, chatting with Emily and Jim, and to give you a bit of an idea of what an important resource we are and how we exist to support students and international graduates in the UK. So we've been around since about 1968. We were created specifically to support international students coming to study in the UK, including Scotland, of course. And we've sort of taken many forms over those years. But what's remained constant is that, you know, that we are there, a free service for students to access while they are here. We do this directly, so we have a really comprehensive website which contains information, advice and guidance on all aspects of the international student experience, including incredibly detailed information on immigration and fees, and that's all aspects of student immigration. So that's student visas across undergraduate, postgraduate, and of course post-study visas as well, so including skilled worker and the graduate route. So we have information for child student visa, you name it, any aspect around that as well. And there's other things in there as well around well-being, living in the UK. It's a really comprehensive resource, and it's all free for you to access. We also do a lot of work in the policy advocacy space. So we spend a lot of time liaising directly with government, Scottish Government and other governments across the UK. We work very closely to advocate with our members, with our students, to advocate on their behalf to the Home Office. So as Nadine mentioned, immigration is not a devolved issue in the UK. So while education is devolved and the Scottish Government is responsible for education policy in Scotland, the Home Office controls immigration policy at the centre, and it is not a devolved matter. So therefore we work with them very closely and with UK Visas and Immigration on the operational side to feedback what students and our members tell us about the challenges around student policy related to international students. And this is something that is really important to us, that policy lens which we look through it. So some of our advocacy is extremely niche. You know, we have a dedicated team of legally trained advisors who scrutinise immigration law and associated guidance, and they go through it with a fine-tooth comb on a daily basis, and that is not an exaggeration. And what they're doing is constantly sort of recommending often very slight changes and often very big changes. So at the moment we're doing lots of work to advocate around some of the proposals that were published in the immigration white paper in May, including changes proposed to the graduate route, and that's something that we do a lot of work with, again very closely working with government, so in immigration, in education, in health as well, around how students can access health services in the 4 UK nations, and any other aspects as well, so that, you know, we've worked in the past as well around support for accommodation, and working with citizen advice to make sure that there's clear advice in regions. We've worked with police forces to support students locally, to avoid them being victims of crime. So our work is really, really wide ranging in that respect. So obviously these slides are going to be shared after the fact, but please do, if you haven't already been on our website, take a look, visit us. We're there to help you. We are free, we are independent. We have an advice line for students, which I will give you the contacts for that at the end. And that is all free, independent, confidential. We are accredited by the UK government, by the government's Immigration Advice Authority, to give confidential immigration and visa advice to students in the UK. So if you need an additional resource where you want someone to guide you through your application to skilled worker or graduate route visa, then you can contact us, and that by telephone, and that advice is free for you to access. We also, because for us at UKCISA, everything we do is around students. So, and students for us have to be at the heart of everything we do. So to help us bring that to life, we run a National Student Ambassador Programme. This has been running since early 2020. In fact, we trained our first cohort up, I think, about a week before the government shut down for the pandemic in March 2020. And we're just about to interview for our latest cohort. Those interviews take place later this week. And I think with that will take us up to about 50 ambassadors that we've nurtured in that time. Nearly 50 ambassadors who've been champions and spokespeople for their peers, who've really developed their own policy and leadership skills. So what we've seen is these students we're often able to put them in rooms with policymakers and parliamentarians to talk about what their experience has been. A significant proportion have been from Scotland. Actually, I would say more ambassadors from Scotland than is proportionate across the UK out of those 50. We have a really high number of ambassadors, past and present, who have come from Scottish universities. And so they've been able to connect very much with Scottish government as well. So it's a very influential programme, and one that's had real impact, real tangible impact, I think, for international students that are here in the UK, but those that will come in future. And it's certainly, we have seen it actually have tangible impact on government education strategies, both in Scotland and as the UK-wide as a whole. All this as well is based around our student charter, which again was developed by our student ambassadors back in summer 2022. And that's something that's been in place for a while. It's a framework based on 5 guiding principles to shape what we think makes the best possible international student experience. And it provides guidance for institutions and organisations supporting international students to help them navigate that student life cycle, what good practice and good engagement looks like. This is something that's been really wonderful to behold. You know, we don't go around institutions and with a checklist and say what is good and what's not good. In fact, what we try and do is foster that and enable universities to look at it and think, actually, this is where we're really, really doing great work here in the Charter, and we want to talk about it and we want to share it. We've also given out grants as a result of this charter, including some grants around careers and employability here in Scotland with colleagues at the University of Stirling. Emily on the call has been a really great colleague for us to work with on this, and has delivered some really great work through our We Are International Grants programme. So thank you very much. In fact, it's very exciting because actually just last week we celebrated our first ever We Are International Awards. We created 13 categories of awards to recognise individuals and teams that have brought the Charter to life in their institution. And I think, you know, that for us has been absolutely tremendous to be able to celebrate what universities and what students are doing as well. So we had awards for student leaders, alumni, community builders. So it really has celebrated individuals and staff who are embodying those chartered principles in their work. So look out for those next year as well. I just want to close on our policy advocacy work as well. I mentioned earlier that we do a lot of work to advocate in this space. And I've included some links in my slides because you're going to get those afterwards. But I wanted to focus on the student employability work here. We convene a international student employability group, and that brings together representatives from across the education sector, advisory groups as well, so groups advising Scottish Government through University Scotland, but also we bring together employer representatives as well. So this is very much a thematic group that looks at all of the work, the evidence base around international graduate outcomes, looks at policy related to post-study work, as Sai has mentioned, skilled worker visas, graduate, flexible graduate visas as well. And this is an ongoing project. We've had this in place for about 4 years now, and it meets fairly regularly to discuss various aspects of policy related to student and graduate employability. So that includes working during studies as well, so not just post-study work, but our resources there do give you a lot of information on those skilled worker and graduate route visas that you might want to follow. It includes information on what might be the best route for you. Skilled worker, as Sai has mentioned, does have a minimum threshold, although that threshold, that 41,000 threshold can be lower depending on the route, but there is information about all of that on our website, and also you can phone our advice line. It depends on the job that you're applying for, but also there's information on there about the more flexible unsponsored graduate route visa, which if you're looking to explore roles in Scotland that may be falling below that skilled worker threshold, that is another route that you can take that does not require employer sponsorship to follow that. And all of that information is on that slide in that link. If you look under our student employability pages, that is all there. We've also, in that group, developed a resource for employers. So you may want to download that from the website as well, because what it is, it's a very handy guide for employers on the difference between skilled worker and graduate route and how to employ international students. So if that's something that you feel you want to go armed into interviews with, you may want to download that resource as well. And I know that other students do find that quite useful to have. So I'll wrap up there. Sorry, we've run over, I know, a little bit, but hopefully all of these links will be there and our resources are there for you to use. And do contact UKCISA if you have any questions at all.
Great, thanks for that, Anne-Marie. So Helen, are you ready to roll?
Yes, thank you, Jim. I'll just get my slides up on the screen, I hope. If not, you'll see my face and you'll be able to catch the slides later. I don't want to hold us up because I know that we've lost a little bit of time.
That's them.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not showing for me at the moment. Maybe Jim, I'll just speak if that's okay.
Okay,
and
yeah, that's fine.
In a bit. Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, good evening, everybody. Assuming that most of you are on the same time zone as me at the moment, if not, hi. I'm based in London. My name is Helen Etheridge, and I am the global program lead for something called Alumni UK, which is the global network for international alumni of the UK. So for anybody who used to study with a UK university, either in the UK or through transnational education overseas as well. For those of you who are not familiar with the British Council, we are the UK's international organisation for cultural and educational opportunities. And And we run this programme called Alumni UK, which is funded by the UK Foreign Office. And thank you very much, Emily, for sharing those slides. I just wasn't able to do that. So I won't stay on for too long, because I know that we've got some alumni themselves who want to come and speak to you. But I really just want you to have the message today that there is this thing called Alumni UK, which you're very, very welcome to sign up for. In fact, you're already all members of this network. You just sort of need to go and fill in the form to make the most of the opportunities. So essentially, Alumni UK is a network that gives you access to professional development support, to networking opportunities, and also as an opportunity to share your experience as international students of the UK, to share back with the UK higher education sector and the UK government as well. The reason that Alumni UK was set up by the British Council was really an acknowledgement of the fact that you, as international students or as alumni, are forming a sort of people-to-people bridge really between the UK and with your own home country as well. And that hopefully, if you've had a positive experience in the UK, that you may, advocate for the UK. So support future students, for example, in considering the UK as a study destination. But also that, we can work with you to further those diplomatic relationships going forwards as well. If we just move on to the next slide, if that's possible, I'll give you an idea of the types of activities that you have available to you as well as alumni. So I mentioned professional development. This is the real core part of the offer to you. This is really trying to fill the gap where, you've got your careers offer at the university already, of course, which is very strong, but where the British Council has offices around the world, we hope to be able to provide you with additional support, essentially. So there's things like the Professional Skills Series, where every month we run webinars for international students and alumni on things like, how to navigate difficult situations, responding to Q&A and presentations, for example, curating your own sort of brand, if you like, as you're going through your career. We're also running a new series called the Sector Spotlight Series, which is focusing in on a different sector each quarter. We've just done one on digital and technology. And we also have a live online event every March called Alumni UK Live, which is a professional development festival where you'll get to hear from experts across different fields, many of whom are alumni themselves. From next year, we're also creating some new events around sort of regional focus as well. Whether you're looking to remain in the UK or return to your home country or elsewhere, we'll be looking at those sort of destinations. Through Alumni UK as well, I mentioned the tailored events that you might have in country. So some of these are often done hand in hand with the UK embassies and high commissions events in country. It gives you access to a network in country as well of fellow alumni, but also employers and back home who you might be interested in connecting with as well. I've mentioned here on the slide addressing global challenges. We really see throughout the alumni community that a lot of people are change makers, either in their local community or further afield. And so we've started up some new schemes around climate action. We have climate action grants to lead projects within the alumni community. We have SDG, Ambassadors Sustainable Development Goal ambassadors as well, who receive some funding from us too. And we're also doing some new work around disability inclusion. If we go to the next slide, I'll just go a little bit into some more detail about the events that we have coming up soon, in case you do want to register with us. The next event that we have is on the 3rd of December. This is specifically around disability inclusion, and it's for alumni who not just have a lived experience of disability, but also an interest and a passion really for ensuring that we have not just inclusive workplaces, but also inclusive places where we study as well. So we have individuals such as Dr. Ola from the Global Disability Fund Secretariat speaking at the event, and we have members of our Alumni UK disability steering group as well who will be speaking there. If we move to the next slide, it's just some more examples of some of the professional development events I mentioned to you. So there's one on handling challenging situations later this week. There's an example there in the middle of an event we have in Sri Lanka around entrepreneurship, and then another event in December on mapping a customer journey if you were to work for such a business. Going on to the next slide, I mentioned to you the global challenges and alumni engaging in this space. So one of the examples of something you could be involved in is our Sustainable Development Goal Ambassador Scheme. So essentially, we've chosen a handful of the SDGs, and we have 2 ambassadors for each of these who not only receive funding from us to take forward projects, but also engage alumni themselves, so run their own events, create their own content within these spaces to really drive forward change. If we move to the next slide, the other thing I wanted to mention to you was our Climate Action Grants Scheme, if this is of interest to people on the call. It's a pilot year for us. This year we received 300 applications, and we're funding 20 really, really fantastic projects around the world, from engaging women in India who are working in the construction industries and supporting them, to working in Indonesia in the ecotourism industry and supporting those local communities who are battling with the rise of the sea level as well, and many, many more besides. I don't have time to go through them now, but just to give you an idea of, I suppose, through us providing this platform to alumni, the brilliant things that they are able to do when they come together. Moving on to the next slide, and this is the last thing I just wanted to highlight to you. At the British Council, we also run something called the Study UK Alumni Awards. This has been going for around 12 years now, and it's a global competition where we recognise alumni who have gone on to do great things within their sectors. And the purpose of this is to really provide those alumni with a platform to tell their story. It helps us share that story then, not just within the industry, but also with prospective students as well, to show what's possible through a UK education. And it's really a way to build the network as well, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say, that Alumni UK is all about that community. And through these stories, we hope to bring people together. I believe that's everything that we have time for now, but thanks very much, Jim, and I'm happy to take any questions if there's any time for them.
Great, thanks for that improvisation there, Helen, with the slides, and thanks to Emily for stepping in and helping out. So just to close this part of the webinar, I just wanted to say that when we finalised the programme for this presentation part of the webinar, we were delighted with the quality of speakers we were able to attract. And having listened to those presentations, I hope you can now appreciate why we felt so pleased with ourselves for putting that programme together. So can I just please ask you to show our collective appreciation by going to the top of your screen, looking under React and hitting that applause button. So, yep, thanks again to all of our fantastic speakers. And with that, I will pause here and make way for Emily, the second co-chair, to begin the part 2 of the webinar, which I hope you'll all enjoy. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jim. Yeah, thanks to all our guest speakers for sharing their thoughts on the support that's available. And with that, I'm delighted to bring us to phase 2 of the webinar, which is all about listening to the lived experiences of alumni. So without further ado, I'm delighted to welcome our alumni panel, who I suppose have kindly joined us to share their own experiences of job hunting and finding their way through the Scottish labour market. And I know how important it is to each and every one of you as you consider what lies ahead for you, how you're going to tackle it. I know that each and every one of them has taken a different route since graduating, and together they do bring a mix of insights and practical advice for anyone thinking about their next steps. So with that, I'm delighted to introduce you to Gabby, Kasturi and Rakasri. And By way of introduction, I think probably the best way to start is to get a brief summary from our panel on their career paths to date. No easy mean feat, I would say, but let's make a start. Katsuri, can we start with you by introducing yourself?
Hi, Kasuri Dasgupta. I did my master's in international business from University of St. Andrews, but I do have almost 25 years of work experience. And I worked half of that with IBM and Amazon. And before I came to St. Andrews, I left an Amazon career to actually pursue my next goal, which was to set up a company. But at the same time, I do have a full-time job with Abertay University as IT service desk analyst. And in last year, I founded my company. And within a year, my company and I, we were nominated for 3 Chamber Champion Awards by the Dundee and Angus Chamber of Commerce for digital innovation and future skills. And we are expanding to India and US we have already expanded to India this year, and we are going to US next year. So touch wood, we are on a growth path.
Katsuri, I know it's something that many of our current students are interested in terms of entrepreneurship, but also for those more mature students who have previous experience, I know how interested they'll be in the experience that you bring. Thank you very much. Rakasri, can we bring you to you? We'll move on to Gabby at this point, just whilst we wait to see if we've got Rakasri there.
Hi everyone, I'm Gabby. I am from the US and I did my master's in behavioral science from the University of Stirling. I also had a bit of work experience before I came to the UK, around 5 years in neuropsychology before I made the decision to come and pursue my master's here in Scotland. My career path has been a bit different, a bit challenging. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I did a lot of networking and then was actually offered a research assistant contract through the University of Stirling before graduating. When that was over, I ended up moving on to Codebase, which is a tech incubator located here in the UK, where I work in community engagement and events.
Thanks so much, Gabby. Hopefully we've now got Rakasri back. Rakasri, can I hand over to you?
Hi, am I audible?
We can hear you.
Hi, I'm Rakasri Basu. I did a master's in creative industries and cultural policy from the University of Glasgow. I was a British Council India Creative Economy Scholar. I, after graduation, had a very short stint at the BBC Scotland, where I worked at the production management team. And in November 2023, I started my own company, which is based in Glasgow. It's a film and television production company, and I have a company back in India as well. It was never a decision to stay back in Scotland. It was always to go back to India and take the learnings that I had from my course. However, plans changed. I got adapted to newer life, and so I decided to stay back, and there's been amazing opportunities that Scotland has given me. Been part of the European Union Producers Program this year, and yes, I think it's been great so far, having started my company here in Scotland.
That's really interesting, Rakasri, and leads me nicely onto that insight into whether you plan to stay here in Scotland or not. Can you expand a little bit more on, did you have a specific job search strategy in mind as you looked to graduation and those final months before you graduated? What were you thinking at that point, and how did you start looking for job opportunities?
To be honest, when I came into study, I was a mature student when I joined the master's course. And like I said, the idea was to go back to India, since I have a company back in India, which is still active. So I have like 2 companies now to run. But the idea was not to really get into the job market initially. However, when I was studying, I had put my CV up on BBC. And after I graduated, shortly after that, I heard back from them, and it was more like an opportunity coming and I taking it. And I started the job with BBC as soon as I heard back from them. But it was rather a short stint. I was with them for, I think, 5 or 6 months, and then I later decided it was time for me to move on and start what I do best, is do a business.
Thank you, Rakasri. I'm interested to hear from Katsuri about your plan. Did you always plan to stay in Scotland? I know it's a decision that many of our current students are thinking about, and I'm keen to hear, what was your strategy and approach to job hunting?
So I did not have any plan, nor did I have not any plans. So I'll expand on what I meant. So before I came here, I was based in India and I moved 5 times in 3 years. So I knew for a fact that wherever I go, I was not going to stay there for a long time, whether I planned for it or not. Having said that, I did have a job strategy. So one of the things I actually did was talk to the career center, and I spoke to Jim Campbell. I sort of bulldozed my way into his office to get an appointment. And one of the things he asked me very simply was, he listened to 45 minutes of me rambling on. And then he asked me a very simple question. He said, if you really want to start your own company, what are you wasting your time for? And that sort of brought a lot of things in perspective. And one of the things I did was have 2-track approach. As I studied, I could not go ahead and start my business. So I spent that year planning and learning. I took the Fast Starts Innovators program with the Entrepreneurship Center. I started understanding what you need to do to set up what I wanted to do and build those networks in the community. The second thing I did was the job. And since I had been working for so long, I sort of had heebie-jeebies not working, even though I left a proper job to come here and study. So one thing I did was I followed my passion. So the first thing I did was go and volunteer with the Bayer Theatre, because I've done literally anything and everything in theatre. And that sort of opened a lot of doors. So they became my second family here. So I got an internship with them the next semester itself. And they have literally given the reference for every job I have got in the UK. So, and they continue to be such a supportive structure for me. Secondly, I applied for only high paying jobs. In the sense, I did not go for the normal route that most people do, which is the retail ones and all of that. I shortlisted the ones I could do well, so I could write well, so I focused on them. I could do project management, so I focused on them, and I could do IT. And this led me to my first big job, which was with the University of St. Andrews, which was weekend IT support. So while I did only 13 hours, I was paid significantly higher than the normal wage, and I was at a higher grade as well. Now that in turn led me to my full-time job with with Abertay University as IT service desk analyst. But again, it is a higher grade than all the other universities and at a higher pay. When it comes to visa, I'll just quickly touch on that. I had the option to go ahead and apply for skilled worker with Abertay University when I joined in 2023, but I chose not to because I wanted to set up my own company and it would be difficult to do that on a skilled worker visa. So while I had the option, I chose not to.
Yeah, Katsuri, thank you so much. It's really interesting that how you're showcasing your skill set and how you are connecting with relevant skills for the employers. I'm keen to hear from Gabby at this point. Gabby, the application process can be really competitive, and I know, and probably I'm speaking on behalf of so many students and probably current graduates in the room, that it can be frustrating at times, making yourself stand out. What made you stand out, do you think, as you applied for jobs in the application process? Now, question for Gabby.
I think for me, I had a couple things that may have stood out in my CV. Particularly, I had 5+ years of work experience before coming into Scotland and doing my master's. So all of that was highlighted, whether that be part-time, full-time, or any internships that I did while I was in my undergraduate years. I also was very involved in my community back home, and then translated that into being very involved in the Stirling community where I was based at the time. I also was the program and module representative the whole year of my master's, so I worked very closely with my program director and the Stirling Business School to make sure that voices were seen, voices were heard, which was a strong leadership skill that a lot of roles that I was applying to wanted to see. I also wrote down all of the marks that I got, especially on my dissertation, just to show my research skills and any kind of key projects that I related to. So during this time, I worked really heavily with I actually had an appointment with you, Emily, so I don't know if you remember that, and lots of career services, CV checks, and kind of mock interviews to make sure that I was going into every interview that I had with the best foot forward.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much, Gabby. I do, of course, remember that appointment very well. And it sounds like you made the most of every network you could possibly connect with to allow you to be successful in transitioning to work. I'm keen to hear from Rakasri as well at this point, that thought on how can you stand out? Again, it's just a question we get asked so often. And when we're speaking with frustrated international students and graduates, what is it that you think made you stand out as you entered the Scottish labour market?
I think as a person, and also having this sort of entrepreneurship skills from very early on, I'm very open as a person and very adaptable. I can very quickly adapt to any place, anytime, any given situation. So I think being open is a very, very important factor in getting yourself seen in the job market. And I now get to work with a lot of international students who are interning with me currently in my company from Glasgow University. And I think the basis on which I now hire the interns is also that, are they open to adapting to a newer territory, newer processes, and how are they seeing something new, and what structure do they bring to the table?
Thanks, Rakasri, for your insight. Alison talked earlier about meta skills and the demand for meta skills in the workplace in Scotland, and it very much resonates with what you're sharing there about these additional skills required to really just get yourself noticed. At this point, again, as you transition into the Scottish labour market, Katsuri, maybe this is an opportunity to hear from you. How did you find the workplace culture in Scotland, and were there any surprises?
Not necessarily, but I think one of the things that you have to adapt is one of the things we tend to do, especially when you come from outside, is we tend to jump to conclusions. So one of the things, and I'll give you an example. So I had an accident in the beginning of 2024, and I received an incorrect treatment from NHS, and I nearly died twice. And while I was going through all of that, it was very difficult for me to navigate within, the medical system to get all the documentation for my work. So while my line manager was very understanding, he couldn't understand the challenges I was facing as a foreigner navigating the crisis. And those days I had registered myself in NHS, but I was in Dundee, and I couldn't register anywhere in Dundee because nobody was accepting new patients, and it was a nightmare getting the documentations done. But when I went back and I explained what it was, like, why those challenges were there, as opposed to, him not understanding why I couldn't navigate them, it was okay. So those cultural nuances and those difficulties between somebody navigating the same system as a citizen is very different from somebody who's navigating the same system from outside. Secondly, one of the things he does, and it is a pet peeve of him, is like he's constantly going to pick up on the language cadences when I write documents or emails and all, and it literally drove me nuts. And I thought it was like, oh my God, he's doing it to me, But then I realized one of my other colleague, who's Scottish, they have known each other forever and ever. He was talking about, he's like, oh, you know what, this guy drives me nuts because he does that. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, he's just like that. He does it with everyone. It's just his pet peeve, as opposed to him, specifically driving me insane. So some of the things is that, you have to have a lot of grace as well for yourself and for the other person. And at the end of the day, it's just, people are being people. You have all sorts, and we all have our own quirks. And I'm sure they agree to, some of the quirks I have, and they think I'm crazy about things. But you have to be accepting of both sides. They are accepting of me as somebody who comes with very, very different backgrounds, very different energy, and they are laid back. I work in a team which is all men, I'm the only woman in the team. So they are hyper focused on some things, and otherwise they just ignore the fact that I'm a woman. So it's a lot mixed bag. But overall, everybody has been extremely welcoming, especially during the riots last year. Whether at work or in the community, everybody checked up on me constantly to see if I was safe. Whether I was, whether I felt safe also was something. And everybody, whether at a work, at a university level, in Abate, and within the community, within Dundee as well. So overall, I would say it has been a good experience and I've enjoyed it. Was it different from what I did in India? Not really, because I mean, at the end of the day, you have to bring your professionalism to work. It doesn't matter where in the world you're working. So those things are like standards.
Thank you, Katsuri. Gabby, keen to hear from you on this point. Did you find the workplace culture different in Scotland? Were there any surprises?
I don't think I was necessarily surprised, but I definitely did find it a bit different. I have been really lucky to have a very positive experience for every place I've worked for in Scotland. The thing that I love the most is every team I've been on is very diverse and inclusive. Almost the majority of every team I've been in has at least half of international talent. So I do find that teams in Scotland, in particular those in tech, are really keen to have international talent and experience. One thing that I also really appreciate as well, coming from an American who has worked in the American system the majority of my life, is the emphasis on work-life balance. It sounds not that big of a deal, but being able to kind of clock out at 5 and come in the next day and not have chaos is something I've really appreciated.
Yeah, thanks, Gabby, for the insight. And the same question for you, Rakasri. What was your thought as you transitioned into Scotland, and were there any surprises in the workplace?
I very much love to be in Scotland, honestly. But I mean, in my case, maybe my transitions into the workplace was not that of a contrast, because I've lived in the Nordics for a couple of years. I've lived in Stockholm, I've lived in Copenhagen, and I find Scotland to have very similar ways of living like the Nordics. So I'm pretty much feels like I am home in a way. And talking about workplace and how people have been also very surprised by the fact that I hold an Indian passport. So there are a lot of differences in the way that I have to navigate, like with my visa, with having to send my passport over for a Schengen visa or a visa to Ireland should I have to travel. And as a film and TV producer, I have to travel a lot. I co-produce with different countries. So, travel, as you can understand, is like the first thing I need to do in order to put the projects together, mount them, bring the finance, etc. I remember the first time I was applying for a travel grant to go to Rotterdam Film Festival early on this year. I applied to Screen Scotland, and I had a line item as a visa fee. And they were like, but what is this visa fee? I'm like, yeah, I have an Indian passport. I need to apply for visa. That's the visa fee. So you need to pay for that. And they had never paid a visa fee for a Scottish native producer. But I am a Scottish producer now, but I have an Indian passport. So it was a very unique situation. And it was the same case when I was part of the Scottish producers delegation that went to Ireland for an exchange with Irish producers. And my passport had to be sent over to the Irish consulate, Irish embassy in London, where my passport kind of stayed hostage for 3 weeks. And then I had to travel to Spain, and the passport hadn't come back. And then everyone in Creative Scotland was going crazy, like, oh, Rakashri's passport is still not back, and she has to travel to Spain in 2 days. And then they were calling everywhere. And then finally I got my passport back. I went to Spain, came back, sent back my passport again to the consulate. So things like this is having these visa challenges feels like, to me, it takes a massive amount of my time than actually doing the work I need to do. So any sort of immigration compliances are definite bigger challenges, I feel. And I mean, for everyone in particular as an international student. So maybe that it opens up to another question.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure there are many international students at present all agreeing with you when it comes to challenges surrounding visas and things like that. I'm loving in the chat, I don't know if you're following, but already the networking that's happening online, and already I can see some of you sharing contacts and LinkedIn. My final question really is, what advice would you offer to current international students who want to build a career in Scotland? And Rakashri, I'll start with you there. What advice would you offer, if you were to put yourself back in those shoes again as you are as an early graduate? What advice would you offer?
It is a competitive market. Indeed, it is challenging. Do your homework. I mean, it's very, very essential to be very prompt in your responses and be very specific to what you really want to do and where do you want to get to life, and it really needs for you to do a lot of the research. Don't apply to all jobs that you see in the market. You have to be very specific and funnel it down to actually what is that your strengths are, and route it and navigate your strengths to that direction. So be very focused. That would be more helpful than trying to do a lot in very little time.
Yes, some wise words. Thank you, Rakashri. Kasturi, anything from you at this point in terms of, I noticed you sharing those connections and on LinkedIn there. What advice would you offer to international students wanting to build a career in Scotland?
So I'm going to start by echoing Rakashri as well. So focus is very important because it can be very tempting to go in all directions, but it's really important to focus on the short-term goals and how does that relate to what you really want to do in the long term. It's difficult. I'm not saying it's an easy process, but narrow it down as much as possible. Second is solve the problem. There's always going to be challenges, and it is very easy to get bogged down by it, get influenced by a million other people, whether it is social media, whether it is news, whether it is anybody and everybody. But tune them out. Focus only on the problem without any bias or anything. And believe you me, you will come up with a unique solution which is unique for your circumstances. We live in very challenging times, so don't expect the standard solution to always work. Find the solution that works for you. Next is don't get complacent. While I have a full-time job and a growing business, I still keep up my certification. So in the last year, I recertified for ITIL. I updated my ISO 27001 certification. I completed leadership development program at Abbottay, and now I'm doing my FHEA. So please ensure that your qualifications are up to date. It doesn't matter whether you have a business or otherwise. Next is it is important to remember that there has to be compromises to achieve what you really want. But a compromise is not the end of the world. It is a prioritization. You prioritize what you need and want now so that it can build the foundation for what you really aspire for in the future. And last but not the least, please have fun, because if you're not really enjoying what you're doing, there is no value in it. So if that is the case, reevaluate and course correct, and that's perfectly fine. But most importantly, it is your life and you get to shape it the way you want it. So focus on having fun.
Kasturi, thank you so much for sharing those wise words as well. And that leaves me to Gabby as well. I'm keen to hear from you, Gabby, on any advice to current international students thinking about their career in Scotland. You've got that lived experience. What words would you like to offer?
I think I'll echo a few points and then add my own. Focus is definitely the most important thing to me. Come into especially the one-year master's programs with a plan of what you want to do, whether that be whether you want to stay in Scotland or go home, but just make sure you're focusing on everything that you need to make that happen. Second point is that let's have some fun. I think when we are in these positions and being an international student, we often focus a lot on the education. While that is important, you will meet some of the best people you've ever met during your years here in Scotland. I met my husband here. It's a big reason why I'm staying in Scotland, but make sure you focus on it, because those will then turn into my next point is always go to the networking. I know it's super scary, but networking was my biggest key into every single role I've gotten to in Scotland. I know it's scary, but go do that. And then lastly, always take advantage of the career services. Also, I know it's super scary to go and ask for help, but there's not a stupid question whenever you need.
Gabby, thanks so much for your words. I'm really conscious of time, and sadly, that's all we have time for today. So I hope everyone will join me in thanking our alumni panel today, offering their insight into the experiences they've had living, working here in the UK. We know it's challenging, but I hope from hearing from our graduates today that it gives you motivation to be persistent, motivation to go out there, network, meet people. And most importantly, to recognise that there is opportunity here in Scotland to live and grow your career if you make the most of the opportunities that present themselves. Jim and I together have worked to ensure that today has been about the support that's available in guiding you with your career here in Scotland, the support that's available across the UK to ensure that you get the best possible opportunity to learn about the industries, to learn about what's available to you here in Scotland, and to recognise that even after you graduate, you will continue to have the connections with such a wide network of incredible professionals across universities and across external organisations that will allow you to thrive in your career, whatever you choose to do. That's all the words from me. Jim, I don't know if you want to jump in at this point and say any last few words.
Yep, no, I think you've covered it, Emily. Yep, I'll just echo everything you've said. So thanks to everyone for attending, and all the best in your future endeavours.
And slides and recording will be shared after the webinar. And of course, we will be sharing a feedback form. As we said, this is the first time this webinar has been hosted. We'd welcome your feedback. We're keen to do more to support you where we can. So we'll look forward to hearing from you. And some contacts have already been shared in the chat as well. Thank you, everybody, and best of luck.